This is The Moneymakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield, and this week I've had the privilege of attending the big insurance conference under the auspices of the Insurance Institute South Africa at Sun City. Amongst the delegates is the new president of the Insurance Institute of South Africa, Delphine Maidou, who runs the corporate and industrial business for Allianz in Africa. The first woman, the first black woman, the first African black woman in the history of the Insurance Institute. No pressure. I mean, this week I also met the first woman chief executive of Lloyd's of London in 336 years or something. You guys are taking over the world of insurance anyway.
We've always been behind the scenes, yeah? And I've said it before, there's one thing that I'm having a hard time with, being called the first this or the first that. Because we're not.
It doesn't undermine you as an individual.
It doesn't, but it takes it away from many people's minds. They tend to forget how you have come and what you've done to get there. So that's why it's a little, I
get it, and I don't like usually drawing attention to it, but it is unusual because particularly in an insurance industry which doesn't have that many senior women anywhere in the world in it at all.
We need to do more to change that. I know Allianz has been very good at it. I've been with them 10 years now. There's been a lot of support in my career to get me here. But I think we need to do more. It's the responsibility of women as well to pull other women on board.
I was doing some research the other day into companies run by women, and only something like 5 out of the FTSE 100 companies in the United Kingdom are run by women. In South Africa, just 2 top 100 companies are run by women. It happens both Nonkululeko Nyembezi Haita is the chair, and Nikki Newton-King would have 2 names to be at the JSE and in charge there, and Wendy Lucas-Bull and Maria Ramos at Barclays Africa. Now, American research shows that over the last 15 years or so, there's been a substantial financial outperformance of companies run by women on the S&P 500 versus companies run by men. Is there a difference?
I think there is a difference. And what's key is that as women, we need to remain women. I think some women tend to, as you are growing the corporate ladder, you tend to think that you need to act like men, think like men, but there's a reason why we're different. I think we tend to be a bit more subtle in the way we negotiate. We tend to also be a bit more empathetic when we are in discussions. So there's a different way that women do business than men. I wouldn't say we're necessarily better, because we've seen situations where it's not the case. So to be fair on that.
But does insurance need a little bit more intuition rather than legalese and the endless boring documents that come with any?
Absolutely.
You know, insurance, it feels like it's stuck in the coffee house of Lloyd's of London 326 years ago. Thou shalt not, thou shalt not. It's like the 10 Commandments. And perhaps there's a new era for insurance generally.
To be honest, a lot of the, in my career overall, I've been very successful in bringing new companies on board within Allianz. And it's not been sitting around a coffee table looking at a policy document. It's not been around explaining how smart we are or how good we are, but it's a lot about relationship, right? How are you able to see what your client needs? Are you able to listen to them and then to bring value to their daily business? So it's not about legalese. As Andrea Schell said today, the legal aspects should really come last when it comes to that.
And people were captivated by Andrea Schell today. He's one of your colleagues from Germany, talking about the secret of insurance. It's not particularly complicated. It's about paying claims.
Absolutely.
And it's about your customer believing that when they make a legitimate claim, that claim will be settled and settled in full.
Absolutely.
It's the way it should work, but it doesn't work like that. Why not?
I think to his point as well, and then we've made that change within Allianz Group work, the claims function has not become part of the board because it's not a back office function, it's a client-facing function. The claims department, they need to understand what clients they're dealing with. If the first time a claims adjuster sees a client is around the loss, then there's a problem. So it's quite important for us as insurers to make sure claims is part of the selling process from the beginning. We've had situations where we even had claims payment arrangement with client from the get-go. So when the loss happened, we know exactly what to do, and the client knows exactly what to expect.
Why is there a trust deficit? There's a trust deficit between regulators and insurers, insurers and regulators, customers and insurers, customers and regulators. There just seems to be this, we don't seem to be on the same page when it comes to I pay a premium, you take the premium, I have a problem, you pay me out, and everybody's happy. Somewhere that relationship went wrong, or has it always been slightly askew?
I think there's a lack of transparency and communication between clients, brokers, insurers, regulators, and I think that's where the trust issues comes into the picture. We're not always sure, as an industry, who are we working for. When you take the Allianz Group, for example, 110 billion euros globally that we get in revenue. Closely 93 to 94 billion of that goes to client, goes to paying losses. So there's a track record there, and I would say many insurance companies probably similar. But I think where the disconnect is, there's not always transparency between the parties concerned.
South Africa is going to be adopting, and is in the process of adopting, this concept of TCF, very big in the United Kingdom, treat customers fairly. It immediately implies that customers have not been treated fairly up until now. But does something like TCF and plain language add to this issue of transparency, or are some of the issues just so complicated that they're impossible to simplify to a point where ordinary people will actually understand them?
You know what we've done to make things a bit simpler? We have what we call a client advisory or a client academy, where it's not been the favorite topic for brokers in particular, but we at Allianz, especially here in South Africa, felt that it was important to sit around a table with clients for 2 days and explain to them what we do. It's not a sales pitch, it's just to explain why we do what we do and the thought process behind our decisions, whether it's getting on risk or whether it's paying claims or any other issues that is there. So we have 10 of them, we sit around the room, they ask questions, why have you done this, when you did this? Full transparency, open communication, and these clients have been some of the clients that have been very loyal to us. When we've had claims, for example, that were not covered, they understood why it was not covered. So as far as treating customers fairly, if we are doing it at an arm's length, without the insurer sitting in front of the customer, then it can still be lost in translation.
Particularly in the short-term insurance industry, South Africans are massively underinsured. Something like 1 in 3 cars on our roads, it's a terrifying statistic, are insured. 15% of homes, for goodness sake, are insured, and those are the ones with big fat mortgages over them. Why do we have such a problem in South Africa of this lack of insurance? Is it a cultural thing? Is it simply too expensive, as the regulator suggested?
I think it's lack of education about what is insurance supposed to do for you. You will not usually, people that have great assets or very, very large assets will take that into consideration.
So insurance is for the rich?
Currently, that's what we're seeing. I'm not saying it is for the rich, but it looks like there's a certain part of the population that understands the need for it better. But when you compare the insurance penetration in South Africa, compare to other countries in Africa, it's quite advanced here. So there's still a lot of work that we have to do across Africa when it comes to that.
But there's an extraordinary amount of money in South Africa, quite a lot of new money, and it's only as one acquires assets over a certain level. There's big debate as to whether we should have compulsory motor vehicle insurance, or certainly third-party insurance, to alleviate the burden on the state when it comes to the road accident fund, for example, and also to, quite frankly, lower my premiums and probably your premiums as well, because why should I pay to be crashed into by 85% of people who aren't insured? Would you be supportive, as president now of the Insurance Institute of South Africa, for that initiative, which Treasury says is open for discussion with the Department of Transport, but they would like an approach from the Insurance Institute?
Maybe I'll clarify as well the role of the Insurance Institute, because there's different bodies in the insurance industry in South Africa that have that mandate. For us at the Insurance Institute, it's mainly about education. How are we going to make sure that this industry, how are we building the skills in this industry, and how are we able
Somebody in the industry, though, has got to take up this issue. Who's going to take it up?
That's something that we need to discuss as a body, just to see who is the right person.
It'll become a lot more popular if you can generate more business with the insurance industry.
Yes, it would. But we also have to keep in mind that the insurance industry is not all about making money, regardless of what the population is going through. We also have to make sure that the decisions that they're making. And you also have to remember that insurance, it's a personal decision. Some people feel that they can keep on the risk. And they don't need insurance, whether it's the poor or the rich. So
right up until they crash their car, and then
they wonder why.
The regret kicks in.
Exactly.
There we go. Delphine, very nice to meet you. Delphine Maidou is the Chief Executive of Allianz's corporate and industrial business on the African continent. She's also the President of the Insurance Institute of South Africa, the body that seeks to educate everybody about the ins and outs, and there are plenty of those in the world of insurance. This has been The Moneymakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Delphine Maidou, thank you very much for joining us this evening. That's it for this evening. Thank you for watching. Till next time. Bye-bye.